Chapter 9 of Star Trek Next Generation, Starfleet Academy, Nova Command. Here's Chapter 9. Permission to make a suggestion? Jean-Luc asked. Roger, face glistening with sweat, fair hair plastered to his forehead, stared at him as if he had made a physical threat. For a moment, Jean-Luc thought Roger was going to scream at him, or perhaps even strike out. Then he made a visible effort to gain control over himself. Granted, he said, his tone anything but friendly. Jean-Luc rose and went to Roger's side. He bent over and whispered as Franklin and Marta looked on. He could tell they were puzzled, maybe even a little hurt by his secretiveness, but his only hope of pulling this off lay with making Roger at least appear to be the decision-maker. After a few seconds, Roger nodded, and Jean-Luc went back to his science station. Roger cleared his throat and said, Engineering? Navigation will give you a new course. Lay it in, power up all tractor beams, and make sure forward shields are at full strength. Before a bewildered-looking Marta could respond, Jean-Luc sent her the new coordinates. Marta adjusted the helm, and the Ishtar immediately changed direction, streaking deeper into the belt. Full power to forward shields, Roger ordered. Aye, sir, Marta responded. Shields at full power and holding. Jean-Luc had altered the sensor scan, making the Ishtar view screen look back in the direction from which they had come. The anomaly is approaching quite fast, he said. This is going to be awfully close. I'll need Mr. Franklin's help to coordinate the tractor beams. Make it so. I'm glad to help, only what are we doing? Franklin asked. Jean-Luc grinned fiercely. I hope we're going for a ride. In a few seconds, the Black Comet is going to come streaking in off to port, and it will pass by at the extreme limit of tractor range. We have to lock onto it with the tractor beam as soon as it's in striking distance, and hold on to it after it passes. Are you serious? We can't drag anything close to that mass. We can't even make it swerve a single centimeter, Franklin objected. No, but Mr. Wells thinks it can drag us. Its gravity will pull us down into the belt without our using any power. In 5 minutes, we'll power up and go into a tight slingshot orbit around the anomaly. We'll get to the miner's ship roughly 20 seconds before the comet does. So we'll have only one chance to beam those two aboard. Our trajectory will fling us back out above the plane of the belt. Then, at 3/4 cruising speed, we should have enough fuel left to make it to Volta Station. Barely. Full power available on all tractor beams, reported Marta. Shields are holding. We're hitting random debris from the belt. Franklin bent tensely over his controls. Waiting for the target, he said. Jean-Luc glanced at Roger Wells, who looked forlorn and frightened. Sir, perhaps you had better tell Mr. Sarah and his pilot to stand by. We should rendezvous with them in... Jean-Luc checked a chronometer readout. 6 minutes and 17 seconds. Open began Roger. Then he grinned, though it was a sickly green around the gills grin. Belay that order. You're busy. I'll take care of it. From his auxiliary control panel, Roger called up Sarah's image again and explained matters to him. The picture was barely readable, and the sound crackled and sputtered. Communications were terrible because the approaching anomaly was disturbing the normal lines of space-time, but after Roger had repeated his message several times, Sarah understood and said they would both stand by, with their locator broadcasting signals at full power. Roger signed off. Here it comes, Franklin announced. Engaging tractor. Missed! Try again, shouted Wells. Aye, aye. Got it. Hang on, this is going to mess up our inertial damping system. For an agonizingly long half-minute, nothing changed. They all waited, tense and silent. Then Jean-Luc felt a strange sensation at the pit of his stomach. Ordinarily, when a ship had its inertial damping field on, the passengers could feel no acceleration. A ship being pummeled by energy might have enough field fluctuation to toss its crew around, but under ordinary conditions, everything was rock solid. Now, though, it was like being on the highest hill of the biggest roller coaster in the universe. One had the sensation of a pause, then an endless forward drop, going faster and faster. Jean-Luc found himself gasping for breath. The view screen showed the stars blurring as the Ishtar vibrated from the strain of holding on to the black comet. The anomaly itself was still invisible, but Jean-Luc was probing it with all his sensors. What he read was incredible. The entire mass had no more volume than a small shuttlecraft, barely more than the Ishtar. But it was so dense that it was as if the entire Earth and another dozen planets like it had been crushed down to that size. Anything on the surface of that tiny body would be smashed by gravity. A human being would be reduced to a one-molecule thick film of bone, flesh, and blood, all pulverized and spread over the unimaginable surface. "Look at that!" Marta cried. Jean-Luc stared at the view screen, now looking forward again. A tumbling asteroid dissolved, pulled into a dusty stream of matter, friction heating it to incandescent brightness as a black comet pulled it in. Even its dying glare could not illuminate the small mass at the heart of the disturbance. Jean-Luc tore his fascinated gaze away and looked at his readouts. The doomed asteroid had been just within 1,000 kilometers of the comet. Its fate would be the same as that of the two miners if the Ishtar's desperate attempt failed. "If this is a holographic simulation," Franklin grumbled, "I think I'll ask for planet-side service." They wouldn't do that to us, Jean-Luc thought. Or would they? The Kobayashi Maru scenario had certainly washed out its share of would-be Starfleet officers, and that was all simulation. "What's our speed?" Roger asked. Marta instantly answered, "We're at 0.7 light speed, going faster than safety margins for a Nova-class trainer. Shields are holding, though." They had to hold. By now, Jean-Luc could detect innumerable impacts against the energy shields, fragments of the destroyed asteroid, pebble-sized pieces of matter that could zip through duranium like a knife through butter at the speed they were traveling. A hull breach could be dealt with on a starship, but on a trainer, it would mean instant, nasty death for everyone inside. "We're coming up on the time to begin our burn," Jean-Luc said. "Should we prepare to beam the two miners aboard?" "Yes," Roger said. "Make it so." Make it so. That old earthbound command, beloved in the British Navy. Despite their danger, despite their frantic hurry, Jean-Luc could not help smiling a little. He liked the sound of that old-fashioned order. "I'll go to the transporter station and operate it from there," Franklin said. "Better chance of a clear lock from the primary controls." He squeezed into the corridor, and a moment later his voice came over the shipboard communication system. "Transporters ready. If we can get within range, we should be able to grab them. I'm picking up both of their signals loud and clear." "Transport them as soon as we're close enough," Jean-Luc said. "You won't have more than 4 or 5 seconds." "Understood." Jean-Luc kept a steady eye on his navigation readouts. The computer helped. He couldn't have done anything without it, but it finally came down to one vital decision. His miscalculation of just a fraction of 1 second could be the difference between life and death. Jean-Luc's muscles tensed, his heart pounded loud in his ears. "Prepare to engage engines, full thrust, current heading," he said. "Ready on my mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, engage!" The Ishtar's engines surged to full power. "Cut tractor beams!" Jean-Luc yelled. Marta dropped them at once. The little ship was now free of its unseen companion. Balancing acceleration and centripetal force against gravity, it swirled around in an orbit that carried it faster and faster, hurtling toward the far side of the black comet and toward the stranded miners, who by now must be terrified, seeing the chaos the incoming mass was making among the asteroids. Roger was still monitoring communications. "We're coming," he said. "Stand by. We'll energize as soon as we're within range." No response. Perhaps the miners had not even received Roger's message. It was impossible to tell. The view screen had dissolved into gray and black streaks of static, its systems strained past their tolerance points by the gravitational waves put out by the black comet. Jean-Luc could hear the creak and groan of metal, the complaint of a ship far exceeding its design standards. The ship communicator chirped, and Franklin's voice said, "Locked on to 2 targets. Energizing." "We're around the comet," yelled Marta. "Speed is 0.8 light and holding." Jean-Luc watched the display of his navigational computer. The comet, marked by an ugly red spiral of gravity, had never been closer than now. The tidal forces of its gravity made the Ishtar scream in protest. The whole ship hummed with tension, like a Volusian skittermouse fleeing from a charging cobra cat. Sorry, that's so silly. The Ishtar flashed right in front of the comet's wave of destruction, then arced back up and away from it. Jean-Luc checked his calculations, double-checked them. "We're free of the gravitational field," he said, relief in his voice. "Heading out of the asteroid belt." "Slowing to cruising speed," Marta reported. "We're showing lots of minor damage. Nothing serious enough to threaten the ship, though." With a sigh, Jean-Luc read out their new position. "We're far off our original course." For a moment, everyone on the bridge was silent. "Did we get them?" Marta asked, sounding strained and upset. Franklin answered right away. "Affirmative. I'm opening the hatch to the crew quarters so that Mr. Serra and Mr. Wilmot can rest and have some food. They're worn out." Serra's voice came through over Franklin's communicator. "Captain, thank you. For a few minutes there, we thought we were dead ducks." "You're welcome," said Roger, with a glance at Jean-Luc. "You put on one whale of a show of piloting," Serra said. With a pale smile, Roger said, "Thank my crew. They're the ones who made it work." A few moments later, Tom Franklin returned and slipped into his seat. "Very exhausted," he said. Both of them had been suited up outside their ship, working on the thrusters for 18 hours. "Why didn't they call for help earlier?" asked Marta. Franklin shrugged as he began to run his hands over the communication control panel. "You know, miners, last of the great individualists. Anyway, they thought they could repair their ship. Probably could have, too, without the interference of our heavy visitor. Well, they can rest now." He shook his head. "Wouldn't you know? Now Starfleet is signaling us, but our transmission system is really down." "Can you repair it?" asked Roger. "I'll see what I can do, but we took quite a shaking during that pass. I'm betting we'll have to hold off on our explanations until after we dock." "Speaking of that," said Roger, "what's our course going to be?" Jean-Luc had been working out their fuel reserves. He gave a mark and bearing. "That will put us into Voltaire 4 hours late," he said. "But it's the only way we can get there without having to drift in." "Get us to Voltaire in one piece," Roger said, his voice strained and empty. "That's all I ask." "We will be 4 hours late," Jean-Luc repeated. "As long as we get there under our own power, I don't care. It's not going to be much of a celebration for me anyway," said Roger, and he fell into a brooding silence. He looked like someone who had just read his own death sentence. Chapter 10. "I don't deserve this," Tabitha Rand said, squirming uncomfortably. "If Starfleet says you deserve it, then you do," Tom Franklin responded. "Just relax and accept it." Jean-Luc paced back and forth, wondering where in the world Marta was. He, Tom, and Tabitha were in a small room backstage at Scobie Hall. In a few minutes, they would have to go out on stage, and, well, that would take care of itself. Right now, he had other things to worry about. He ran back over the incredible events of the past 6 days. The Ishtar had limped into Voltaire Station under its own power, but just barely. Captain Page waited for them at the docking station. "So here you are," he said, as the crew stumbled out. Or at least the conscious members of it, because Tabitha was still asleep at that point. "I'll expect a full explanation." Explanations there were in plenty. As it developed, Starfleet could have sent a fast vessel to pick them all up not long after they emerged from the asteroid belt. "Only," Captain Page explained with just a hint of a twinkle in his eye, "I expected you would want to bring your ship back, or what's left of it, at any rate." Both of the miners were well, and within 2 days, so was Tabitha, except for a lingering embarrassment at being laid up by a childhood disease, the most crucial part of their trip. By the time they boarded a Starfleet shuttle for the trip back to Earth, they had already learned that a starship had been dispatched to follow the Black Comet. As soon as it was a comfortable distance from the solar system, the ship would attempt to destroy it with antimatter torpedoes. On the trip back to Earth, a much more comfortable trip on a real Starfleet vessel than on a trainer, Captain Page told them that they had done well. "You probably noticed that we like to throw cadet crews certain little problems on these training missions," he said, not smiling. "Well, we didn't anticipate that one would come roaring in from interstellar space. You succeeded in dealing with it, and you brought your ship back. I don't think any of the other crews will have performance ratings quite as high as yours." And none did. Now they were to receive commendation ribbons, and 2 of the crew, Marta and Roger, were late. Jean-Luc stopped his pacing and opened the hall door. There she was. He went out to meet her. "Where have you been?" he demanded. "They'll call us out any minute now." "It's Roger," Marta said simply. Jean-Luc looked down at his feet. He puffed out his cheeks and straightened his tunic. "Where is he?" Roger was outside, sitting on a bench beneath one of Boothby's beloved California yews. The cadet sat slumped over, his face mottled and his eyes red. Jean-Luc came over and sat next to him. Roger didn't look up. "Go away," he said very distinctly. "The ceremony is due to begin," Jean-Luc said. "So go. It won't matter to me." "What do you mean?" Roger glared at him. "It means you've won, all right? I'm resigning from the academy. I hope you're happy." Jean-Luc leaned back and looked up at the deep blue sky. "We were never in competition," he said. "Ha!" Roger wiped his eyes. "Everyone said I had it easy because my father is a government minister. Well, I studied, and I was the best. Then you came along, and you did things so much easier than I did." Jean-Luc laughed. Roger stared at him, deep misery in his eyes. "Don't make fun of me." In a soft voice, Jean-Luc said, I'm not. The joke is that I thought that very same thing about you. You never seem to have to struggle, and I'm a bit of a plotter sometimes. A puzzled look came into Roger's eyes. You mean you thought that I was that smart? Jean-Luc nodded. Roger laughed, a harsh, bitter laugh. But a laugh still. Oh, this time I was knocking myself out to keep that tiny edge over you. Jean-Luc stood in the cool shade of the fur. Perhaps the secret is in working together, not against each other. That's how we did it on the Ishtar. How you saved my neck, you mean, when I froze? No. How we all worked together, Roger, and saved those 2 miners and the ship and one another. That's what Starfleet is all about. Come on. You're not going to quit. You're too good for that. Roger got to his feet, but he still looked stubborn. And tell me this. How did you figure all that out about the comet? I was scared out of my wits. So was I, confessed Jean-Luc. But you still have to do something, even when you're scared. I tried to follow Mr. Spock's advice, remember? Light dawned in Roger's eyes. You made an ally of an enemy by letting the comet tow us to the miners. You made a crisis into an opportunity by rescuing them and the ship. And I learned from the experience, Jean-Luc said. Now I know what being part of a team, part of a Starfleet crew means. I think you should learn the same lesson. Guys, it was Marta, frantically gesturing. They're calling us. Jean-Luc stared at Roger. Well? Roger mustered a grin, a ghost of his old jaunty one. Well, race you to the door. After the ceremony, Jean-Luc wandered off alone. It was all very nice, standing on stage, having your classmates clap for you, but he needed time to absorb it, to adjust. He strolled aimlessly for a quarter of an hour. He wound up at the triangular bed where he had helped Boothby with the rose sets. They seemed to have taken hold. Of course, none were in bloom. They looked like dry bundles of thorny sticks, to tell the truth, but all were green, all alive. Jean-Luc felt a hand on his shoulder. You plant well, said Boothby. Thank you. And I heard about the little celebration back in Scobie Hall, too. I suppose I should congratulate you. Of course, starship captains are a dime a dozen, you understand. Good gardeners are rare. Jean-Luc looked at the old man. What does that mean, a dime a dozen? Boothby sniffed. Means there's more than enough of you young smarty-pants for the whole old galaxy and then some. Well, congratulations on finding the right soil at last. I hope something good grows in it. Jean-Luc frowned. Soil? For the roses, you mean? For yourself, Boothby returned. You sure you're really as smart as they say? Jean-Luc shook his head. No, I've never been sure of that. Good. Maybe that will keep you humble. Boothby cleared his throat. Think of a Starfleet commander as a kind of rare plant. He's got to find the right soil to grow in. Yours seems to be wherever leadership is needed. Is that clear enough? Clear enough. And get out of here. Your friends are waiting at your dormitory to throw you a surprise party. Jean-Luc stared at the old man. How did you know that? I know everything, Boothby snapped. I'm a gardener. Jean-Luc went on his way. He turned once to wave, but Boothby was on his knees, head bent low, his skillful hands on a struggling plant, helping it grow, stronger, healthier, and straighter. Feeling strong and healthy in himself, Jean-Luc ran the rest of the way to his surprise party.